On Capitol Hill, joining me now, Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee on the House side. Congressman, you've been watching all of this, and most recently, Armed Services Chairman John McCain said, are you suggesting that the conversations reported by the Washington Post today and others were classified? And there was some suggestion that they were, but if the president asked them to back off of an investigation, that's not a classified conversation, is it?
No, it's not. You're absolutely right, and Senator King was absolutely right. These conversations are not classified. It's clear from the witnesses today there has been no claim of executive privilege, and there's no basis for them to refuse to answer. The fact that they may not prefer to answer, or the fact that the White House may prefer that they don't answer, and they don't want to have to invoke executive privilege, that's not a legal basis for them to decline these very important questions. It's also not enough, in my view, to try to hide behind a closed session. The American people have a right to know if their president is interfering in any way with the investigations being conducted by Congress or the FBI, and they should have answered those questions. We're certainly going to see if we can get to the bottom of them in closed session. And I also believe, as Senator... Yes.
Adam Schiff, let me just ask you to hold on just a second. We're going to go back to the hearing just to hear some comments from Senator Warner, the ranking Democrat.
And from me, that if there is any credible allegation that anybody seeks to obstruct a federal investigation, it will be investigated appropriately, whether it's by Mr. McCabe, by me, by the special counsel. That's our responsibility, and we'll see to it.
Well, I thank the chairman for the fact that we've been working on this in a bipartisan way, and we will ultimately have to get to the content of those conversations. Thank you.
Director Coates, I know you've got to go. Give me 90 more seconds.
And just that was a follow-up from Senator Warner, trying to find out if they can hear about it in closed session. But, Congressman, if it's discussed in closed session, then they cannot reveal it to the public, because then it would be part of a classified conversation.
Well, you know, again, it may not be classified, but if the expectation is that it will be kept confidential, then that's something I'm sure the senators won't want to breach. I'll be having a meeting with Director Rogers later today as well in a closed environment, and I'll certainly want to ask some of these questions myself. But I think at the end of the day, it's important for the public to know about this, and they're either going to claim privilege or they're not. And if they're not, they shouldn't be able to hide behind closed doors. We need to get to the bottom of this, and as Senator Warner alluded, and the same experience we've had on the House side, there are other witnesses we believe that we can go to, if necessary, to corroborate or refute some of these allegations that have been out in the public. But I don't think that's a substitute for having the witnesses who were direct participants in these conversations testify before the public about them.
Let me ask you about something you tweeted, just to clarify where we stand on all of this after a day of questions and non-answers. You tweeted, whether Directors Rogers and Coates felt pressured is not issue. Whether POTUS sought to interfere is. Public deserves an answer. We will get it. So the question they were being asked is whether you felt pressured. The question is really whether they were asked at all. How they felt isn't the issue.
Well, that's exactly right. And, you know, the carefully worded statement by Director Rogers that was seconded by Director Coates, that was obviously scripted out in advance. It was very carefully worded non-denial. The issue, you know, whether there's obstruction of justice or interference in the investigation doesn't go to what they thought or whether they felt pressured or whether they felt they could resist the pressure or whether they were directed to do something. The question was, is this what the president said? Is this what the president did? And they were unwilling to answer those questions today in public session. But they're going to have to do better than that, and we're going to have to get to the bottom of this. But I thought those were very carefully scripted non-answers that really don't go to the heart of what we need to find out.
There was clearly coordination here, and at one point when they were asked about executive privilege, they said that they had been in touch with the White House. So you assume that that is with White House counsel?
I would assume it's with White House counsel, and it was also, I think, but you could read between the lines that between this open session and when they go to closed session that they'll be having subsequent conversations, and they'll have to get a hard answer. Are you invoking privilege? Are you instructing us not to answer, or are you not? And unless that privilege is invoked, they're going to have to answer those questions. And obviously, if they're not willing to do so in a voluntary setting, then we'll have to figure out what kind of means are necessary to compel those answers, but they're either privileged or not. And I think there's also a compelling case, as Senator King was alluding, that even if there was a claim of privilege, it's been waived, both by the president talking about this, but also by their opening statements. When Director Rogers tries to leave the impression that he hasn't been directed to do something improper, he is either giving us an impression that can mislead or waiving the privilege, but he can't have it both ways.
And as the hearing adjourned, Chairman Burr, Richard Burr, the Republican chairman, even chiding them, saying, don't come back here with no answers. So they're clearly going to have a closed session on all of this. Where does your own House investigation stand?
Well, we routinely have both of those directors come before our committee, and this hearing today was on Section 702. We're going to be having our own hearings on Section 702. But you can bet that those questions are going to be front and center in the House investigation as well. At their very next appearance before our committee, we're going to need to exactly what conversations took place. And there are other people that we can go to if necessary to either corroborate or refute or as a substitute if they're somehow unwilling to be more forthcoming.